Okay, now let's talk about case construction, which is the next sheet of paper I gave you. Okay? Now, delivery and presentation are important, but you need to sound good at presenting your case, and you have to have strong arguments. So I'm going to talk about what you need to do for that. Important features of any case. Rhetorical framing. This is the stuff that makes up your introduction and conclusion. A slogan, a catchy metaphor, an analogy, right? It may be a great cake, but if it's only half-baked, it doesn't taste very good. And ladies and gentlemen, this case is a half-baked cake if I've ever seen one. No, I mean, whatever. Who knows what it is, right? But you need some rhetorical cohesion. You need some rhetorical cohesion. You need to reach out and say, hey, sucker, listen to me. I got something important to say.
Yeah.
Right? And that's the way you want to do it. Okay, so you need that. It's very important. You need to develop it. You need to use it. Okay, you need to develop it in cooperation with your partner so you're both singing the same tune. Oh, I really like that slogan the second Gov team had. Okay? You need to define critical terms. We'll talk later about what kind of different motions and what you have to do on them. The word for a specific proposal you might want to have is model. Right? That's the word that's used. Our model for this motion is. You don't use the word plan. And that's only because these international debaters hate policy jargon really, really strongly. I think they're just paranoid because they know we rock, so. But it's reality, right? People don't like the N-word either, and so try not to use that. I bet you could figure that out. Structure. You need a clear division of issues. You need to have a nice name for each point. Each point needs to have a name that's a complete thought. Here's Beth. First, we will talk about economic opportunity. Second, we will talk about environment. And third, we'll talk about freedom. Those are the most boring titles that you can imagine. You need to have a complete thought.
Dynasty factor.
Right? Yeah. This program endorses international imperialism. Right? It needs to be sort of a complete thought. Our proposal guarantees equal opportunity for all. You know, you need to have a complete thought, and it needs to have a catchy title. Right? Something that, because it represents the whole argument. They need to be consistent. Your second argument should not contradict your first. Right, Armand?
Indeed.
Okay? You don't want to have repeats or overlaps. Right? Put all your money stuff together and all your freedom stuff together and all your environment stuff together. You know what I mean?
This is within your own speech?
Yeah, this is when you're writing a case.
Oh, okay. Well, I mean,
For first go.
But like,
Or for your new argument.
When your partner makes a good point and you want to highlight their point, that's sort of an overlap, right? I mean,
No. I'm saying in the same speech. In the same speech, you don't want to say, we save money. First, we're going to save money. That'll be really good. And second, we're going to save even more money. And that'll be really good. And the third reason, which my partner will talk about, is economic efficiency. Right? Those are not separate arguments. Now, here's some really bad ways to organize your argument. Social factors, economic factors, political factors. Right? Usually, they're all kind of the same. It costs too much money. That's bad for the economy. It costs too much money. Voters won't like that. It's, you know what I mean? Don't divide things like some European debaters do this, and then Brits really make fun of them for this. It's like international, national, and local. Right? Those are locations. Those are not issues. Those are not arguments. Right? So don't do that. You may have an argument that says this will cause profound economic dislocation. Okay, cool. And you may have another argument that says this will have dangerous political repercussions. Okay, that's cool. But don't just automatically divide things by issues and important arguments from this list, whatever side you're on. Okay? And, you know, all these things I'm saying now also apply to, like, first speaker, first stop, same thing. Right? Same thing, because you have to build your counter case. Consistent, name each point. You need to have strong reasons that have real impacts. And if you don't have real impacts, you better figure out what they are. Like, what's the impact that Hillary's a political animal? What does that mean? I mean, you can say that her first priority is her popularity, her power, right, and her avoiding publicity problems. She's much more interested in that than she is in the right policy. Right? So she'll adopt a bad policy if it's popular, right? And she will neglect a good policy if it's unpopular. Now, how could that operate in international relations? Right? The American people don't like Iran. Iran makes a secret initiative to say, look, U.S., we need to have some quiet talks to work this shit out before we have a war. And Hillary might go, well, that's not going to be popular with the American people, so y'all get out of here, no way. When that would obviously be the best thing to do, right? This is how you have to explain why stuff's important. Pick things that have real impacts, and if you can't think of any, then get thinking. Right? As I say, take it to the end of the line. Things aren't bad because they cost money. Things are bad if it costs too much money and we have a limited supply, then something else has to be cut, right? That's why it would be bad. Or it, creates deficit spending, which is bad. Or, you know what I mean? You have to go to the end of the line. What does it mean when people lose their jobs? Okay? It means they don't have enough money to support their families. It means that they'll have to let their health insurance lapse. It means that their children won't be able to go to college. Also, unemployment causes a lot of heavy stress. If you've been an auto worker for 20 years and all of a sudden you're unemployed, it really affects your feeling of self-worth. Right? Puts a lot of stress on you, which is linked to illness, alcohol and drug use. Right? If you feel like you've let your family down, this is the kind of stuff you have to do by taking things to the end of the line. You need to have the preview points down. If you're one of the first two speakers, you have to say, I'm going to present these two arguments, and then my partner Joe will present our third argument, which is. All right, now, why is it that that's done? It's done out of fairness to the second team, because then they know what your three arguments are, and they can start working on their new argument. But if they don't know what your third big argument's going to be, you might present it and they go, oh my God, what am I going to do with my new argument? Mm-hmm. Right? So it's not required, but it's a fairness issue. You want to give them a chance. And judges think that that's the right thing to do, to preview what you're going to say. Nonverbals say their questions? No? Sometimes I'm wrong. Don't tell them too much detail about what Joe's going to say in his new argument. Just very briefly mention it, maybe give its name, but don't go into any detail. And you need strong summaries. Not only do you need strong summaries at the end, but before you move from argument 1 to argument 2. So what we see in our first argument is blah, blah, blah. Now let's turn to our second argument. Right? These are called internal summaries, which you use as you exit one major argument and as you go into another. It tells the judge, okay, I'm finishing up here on number 1. Stand by, number 2 is coming up. All right, here comes my second argument. And usually the internal summary is another way of saying how this is really important. Joe.
So how is that different from an impact? Like, if you say, this happens, and then this is a negative,
Often
result of that.
often it might be a rephrasing of your impact.
Okay.
But it also might just be a summary of why this is really a cool argument. Very briefly. Okay? All right. Next thing I want to talk about are different kinds of motions. Different kinds of motions. There are three kinds of motions. Motions of fact, motions of value, motions of policy. Motions of fact try to determine whether something is true or not. Free trade does more harm than good to developing countries. That there is a motion of fact. Does it really do more harm than good? Right? So it's about facts. Okay? And the way you do that is you talk about your, you want to show various factual proofs. Paris Hilton is beautiful. Right? You might want to. Is Paris Hilton the most outrageous star now? Right? And you say, well, what do we mean by outrageous star? Well, she's outrageous in a bunch of different ways. Let's talk about them. Here's the first one. Here's the second one. And my partner will talk about the third one, about not wearing any underwear. Okay? And so, you save that one for later and no pictures. And then you talk about how your evidence is bigger and more important than theirs. And the standard for a fact debate is usually the preponderance of evidence. Right? The preponderance of evidence on our side is on our side. Right? It's bigger than on their side. And that's how you determine factual questions in a court of law, actually. Okay? Don't get all excited about the underwear remark. Okay? Proposition of fact. Proposition of value. Okay? George Bush is a great president. Politicians do not deserve private lives. Okay? The right of the public to know is more important than celebrities' right to privacy. Right? These are all like value, and you can tell they're like value-oriented issues. They have that abstract value word in them, right? And what you have to do here is you have to define that value, okay? If the motion is Paris Hilton is beautiful, right? Beautiful is pretty much a value term. So you would define what beautiful means, and you might define it in such a way so that she actually meets that. Right? Then you would talk about different ways in which Paris Hilton meets that definition of value. But the critical thing about a value topic is you need to define the value properly to fit your arguments that seems reasonable, then you're okay. Joe.
With the value topic, then you're using a lot less empirical evidence because
Yeah. Although if you're saying that America, usually, you don't say like we have 13% increase in beauty or a 21% increment of freedom.
So then, how, what if you're working on, say you're not the first person to speak about this value and they define the value
You're stuck
in
with
their, but they define it, as you said, to their own advantage.
in a very self-serving way.
Yeah.
You would dispute the definition if you thought it was exceedingly self-serving.
Mm-hmm.
Other than that, you go for it and depend on the judges to punish them. Because if the first government team is perceived as trying to narrow the debate so that we don't have a good debate, the judges will punish them. Because it's the job of the first government team to create a case which allows for a good debate. That's their first obligation. Not to create a case that allows them to definitely win no matter what. That makes for a crappy debate.
Yeah, so when you said define beautiful so she naturally fits into it, that was
Yeah, but a little bit.
Kind of that.
Right, well, a little bit.
but not like you couldn't say beauty.
But not like must
beauty
be
is-
blonde,
yeah,
must be
thin,
skinny.
blonde,
Right, you
rich.
can't fix the debate for in
Must
your,
be able to see
right.
her bones.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
But so you couldn't.
You know,
Yeah, I mean, you
high
could-
cheekbones, blonde, thin,
Disgusting.
no underwear. Yeah.
You couldn't do that.
No. Well, I mean, you could.
You could, but
shouldn't.
it would work against you.
You should.
Yeah. Okay.
Just like you couldn't say, you know, China is not, the People's Republic of China is not a free country. Okay? You couldn't say, freedom to us means having the rights that we have in the United States. That's what we mean by free country. Oh yeah, China doesn't have them, so we win.
Basically,
Right?
it's an
You'd have to have a broader definition of freedom. Okay? Finally, you have a proposition of policy. Okay? Which means what should we do? Change some law, ban something. Right? Is the policy topic. And here you need to propose a model. You need to show there's a problem. You need to show that your model solves the problem.
Should you have all three of these, or you just want like one?
One.
Okay.
You would interpret the motion in one way. Okay? This House has no confidence in Hillary Clinton. What kind of motion?
value.
Value. Okay? We should ban elective cosmetic surgery.
Policy.
Okay? John F. Kennedy was killed in a conspiracy. Fact. Okay?
That'd be a great one.
All right, so you can figure it out, and that's the very first thing you do when you look at a motion is what? Right, what kind of a motion is it? So you handle it properly. Okay. Next. Oh, and finally, there's the kind of motion that you don't get in Worlds, but you do get in British parliamentary debate. The open motion. This House would unlock the doors. This House would set sail and never come back. This House believes the cup is half full. This House, and then it's a very general thing that you can come up with whatever you want.
Basically, so we're killing ourselves with amusement.
Yeah, we're killing ourselves with amusement, right? And so, I mean, you never know what's going to happen. You have no idea what the first government's going to say, right? And these used to be popular in British parliamentary debate. There's a couple of tournaments that still use them, but not in the world style at all. The world style, they had a big showdown with the open topic people and a long debate at a council meeting, and they voted that they were going to use what are called tight topics. This House would ban elective cosmetic surgery. You know what that's about. Not, this House believes that looking good is all that matters. That's open motion. Okay? I want to talk about how to build a single point. I want to talk about how to build a single point, and this is how you should build your new arguments. Wherever you are, first gov, first op, whoever's presenting a new argument, you should do it this way. And I just use the model of a paragraph. You all know how to write paragraphs, then you should be all set. Okay? You have a title. Just like you would have a title sentence. Right? That one title, a complete thought, flashy, splashy language that encapsulates your argument in one sentence. Right? That would be your title. Okay? Next, you would explain what is meant by this. You would give the logic, the reasoning behind it. Okay? A couple of sentences. Next, you got to give some evidence. Generally, these are examples, either current events or historical. They could be opinions from important people. They could be references to social phenomena. They could be some scientific finding that you're familiar with. They could be your personal experience. There could be a story. You could tell a very short story about an underage size 0 model, right, who was victimized by the fashion industry. There are lots of different things that you can use. But you got to have them, and this is, so far in the debates we've seen, this is the biggest weakness right here. Right? Everybody says Hillary's bad, but won't give specific examples of why she's bad.
I don't understand how a personal anecdote would factor in. You know, it's like,
Well, let me tell you about my experience as a zero-size mom. Right? I felt I was degraded. And, no. If you can give, and I'll tell you quite honestly, this is powerful shit. You know, I was abused by my parents,
come
and it
on,
has really.
people really do that?
Well, you don't. If it's true, you don't make stuff up. You don't lie in the debate.
Okay.
Okay, this is important. Unless you no longer want to represent the University of Vermont, you shouldn't lie. But if you could say, you know, yeah, when I lost my job, I felt like I was worthless, like I couldn't provide for my family.
Okay.
It was really stressful.
Yeah.
And what's someone going to say? Oh yeah, right. Who cares about you? It's like undeniable, right? If you have a debate about eating disorders and one of the speakers says, you know, she's had a struggle with bulimia, the whole room like, whoa. All right, so you must only do it if it's true.
Yeah.
But here's what I'm saying. I think you need 3. I think you need 3. You don't need 1, you need 3. And this will also fill up your speech. Right? We have 3 examples. One's a current event, one's a scientific theory you knew about, one's a personal example. Right? One's a statistic, 2 are current events. See what I mean? Right? And I mean, with Hillary, it would be, you know, you would look at our list up here, you know, you would try to find stuff, and then the healthcare in the 90s, the healthcare today, right? And you could, and this is why you need this list, right? You need this. You need to work on this list during prep, right? And you're not sure where you're going to put all this stuff. But when you start to write this, you'll figure out what's going on. And you may think of one during the debate, and you can insert it. But you really need that. Next, impact. So what? So why is this important? What does this mean? What's the bottom line here? And then you need that little exit summary I talked about. We'll exit summary on top. Okay, so what we've seen here is that the unemployment caused by the government proposal is going to shatter the lives of hundreds of thousands of families. And that's an excellent reason why we should oppose this motion. Our second argument is, all right, so that's the way, it's just like a paragraph. Title, explanation, evidence, impact, summary. Right, because in the paragraph you have a title sentence and a summary sentence. And then the first couple of sentences are usually explanation of the logic behind that paragraph. And then there are specific facts that bear it out. This evidence thing is really important because you are able to translate your opinions into facts. You can translate your opinions into facts. You know, I have this argument, yeah, but you know what? Reality proves my argument. History proves my argument. Science proves my argument. My personal experience proves this argument. You know, Mother Teresa's experience proves this argument. Okay? All right, so, specific structure. Let's look at the bottom of page 2, and then we're done. Let's say you're the first gov. Introduction. Use framing, why this issue comes before us. It's very timely that we discuss it. Let's define the terms. If you need to give a model because it's a policy motion, you would introduce it at that point, right after the definitions. Preview 2 or 3 major points. Right, saying your partner will handle the last one. Then do them. Then have your conclusion. And that's it. Okay, so those are some pieces of advice for case study. Questions?